What's up, Rockers? How you guys doing? I know it's Super Bowl Sunday, so some of you aren't going to be here, or some of you are going to take off and watch the Super Bowl because I think it's starting right now. Make a cup of tea. Too late to drink coffee, but it's just fine to drink tea at this hour, as it is any hour in the UK. I'm sick. I've got a cold. Oh man, tell you what, getting beat up a little bit. England's beating me up a little bit this time around. That's okay though. We're having fun, but we had two great shows in London. That's all that matters. Really, really, really good shows. Great crowds. Sold out both nights. Um, and just really fun. The crowds were cool. They were like really loud and raucous. But still like not rude and weird, you know. They were just cool. What bands are from Cambridge? I don't know. I'm actually just staying a little bit outside Cambridge. Feel so sort of crap today that I've just stayed in, so it doesn't bother me. But normally, I really like Cambridge, and hopefully, I'll feel a little better tomorrow, and I can look around a little bit because it's a beautiful town. It's an amazing town, and I really like coming here, generally speaking, and walking around, and it's really nice. So. Uh, but I'm not sure who came out of here. I'm sure somebody will let us know some bands that came from the area. What time is it? It's about 7:35 p.m. right now. So yeah. Let's see who we got here. We got my knees hurt. Who says he hasn't watched football in years? Um, yeah, I'm not really a football guy, so the only team sport I ever really watch is hockey when the Oilers are in the playoffs, and because I'm from Edmonton, so there you go. I'm not really a football guy, although I'll watch halftime and stuff. It's okay, it's just never been my thing. But um, I don't mind watching basketball either. Um, yeah. Let's see. There's a super duper chat. There's Joe Harvey. There's Scott Brockway. Ben's here. Good to see all you guys. Tour colds are the worst. Yeah, it sucks, dude. I hope I'm feeling better tomorrow. Like everybody's had it. It's just like you come here in the winter and it's like it's cold. It's anywhere from in Fahrenheit 37 to 50. So it's kind of cold every day. It hasn't rained much. I must say the weather's really been pretty good this trip. Um, but it's cold, and then you're on a bus with like a ton of people, and it just happens. It's just like, okay, we're gonna go to England and get sick at some point during this trip. It's how it goes. So it's just what it is. But anyways, here's a couple super chats. Plexico, what's up? Do your Celestion G12 Blackbacks on the road? No. I've got two cabinets, both of which are in the studio. I've got an old Marshall cabinet that has them, and then I've got a blockhead cab that has them. The blockhead cab is the one that we used to make the Dyne IRs from Two Notes. And it's a B cab, so it basically sounds really similar to the Marshall cabinet. It's just a B cab instead of my old Marshall cab's an A cab. So kind of an interesting story how I got that old Marshall cab. There was a pawn shop somewhere north of LA, and I got wind that there was all these old cabinets out there, and I was like, "What? Like this isn't that long ago. It was a few years ago that I got that cabinet." And just long story short, I hit the highway and drove up there, and sure enough, there was like 4 cabinets left, and we were kind of buying them up, and just folks we knew, like a few friends or whatever, got a hold of them. I think Friedman might have bought 2. I bought one. This green backloaded, G12M black backloaded, really, A cab. It just sounded the best to me. And then there were some other cabs that had H30s, and I think George Lynch showed up 20 minutes after I left and bought whatever was left. So, yeah, it was just one of those things where that stuff never really happens anymore, but it's like it did this time. So, Byron says, "Bummed you're under the weather." And thanks, Plexco, for the super chat. Byron says, "Bummed you're under the weather. Here's to speedy recovery." Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm just gonna get a lot of sleep tonight. I'm gonna sleep like crazy. Not leaving this room. I'm just gonna just hope for the best. JB Blues Guitar says often riffage at Cadogan. This or Cadogan, I guess, isn't it? Cadogan Hall last night. I noticed your picking hand is totally relaxed on fast riffs. I expect that as a secret to clean speed picking. All the best for the tour. Thanks, man. Yeah, generally speaking, staying relaxed is really important. The faster you go, the more minimal motion is what I always say, you know? And when you see certain players that are really good at stuff like, I mean, when you look at Ingve, it looks like he's barely trying, you know, when he's playing really fast. So if you can work on that, it helps with the speed and stuff. It's kind of funny. I went and visited that pedal show guys this week. This is the other thing health wise that happened to me, and it's getting better. But I've ripped that finger open, although it's healing up pretty good right now. My third finger there on that, you can see how it's all a little thrashed there. But the other day it was wide open, and so I was doing that pedal show the other day, and as I'm playing, I'm like playing, and then I went for a bend, and I just ripped into it, and my hand just started bleeding all over the place. And they were like, "Oh no, you've got a show tonight," and they were like so bummed. I'm like, "Ah, it's all right. I'll just crazy glue it again." And so I've been being extra careful with it for the last few days, and I think it's healing up pretty good actually. So it's kind of funny when that happens, though. You just have to be careful, like to not. It's like you have to play on a different part of the finger, or use your second finger more for other things. That give it some time to not thrash it. Oh, there's Holly. What's up, Holly? Holly Henderson Music. Everybody go check out Holly's new record. It's so good. The Walls. Oh God, it's good. And I went and did a live stream with her yesterday before my show in Cadogan Hall, and we just spent about an hour playing through some of her songs. There's a couple little clips of it on my Instagram story. But anyway, Holly's so great. She calls me we. I call her woo. Aren't we cute? She's awesome. She's so good. Great songs and epic melodies and great playing and stuff too. Great to see you yesterday. And it's kind of funny because she now plays in a band and works closely with a guy named Alan Boyd that I was in my first band with. So Alan moved to England when I moved to LA in like the early 90s, kind of. And Alan kept doing music and stuff, and so did I, but he's just done it in London ever since. So we reconnected and got together in London, and this was a number of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And on that same day, I was meeting Holly, so I just said, "Well, let's all meet up," because they'd never met before. And so we all got together, and then they hit it off, and now they're in a band together, and they have a band called Rosie that's separate from Holly's project. And they're good friends, and that's been a great thing for Holly, I think, too, and stuff, and for Alan. And so anyway, it's just nice when you can put good people together. But it's just funny because we getting together yesterday, and Alan was there. It's like, this is wild. You were in my first band when I was 10. Like this, he was a kid that was like 12, and I was like 10. He was a little older, and he lived like around the corner from me in Edmonton. So, and here we were doing something together yesterday, and it was really neat. So, pretty cool. Good times, good times. Okay, what else have we got here? Pawn shops in LA probably have a lot of decent guitar gear. I think that I mean, you might find I haven't seen anything in a long time. This thing was special. This there was something going on with this particular find where I got this cabinet from, where at this place there was a lot of gear that had been left there for like a lot of years, but from like one guy, I think. And it was like there was like amps and cabs and all kinds of stuff, and they'd been there for like 18 years or something. And eventually they just figured this guy's not coming back. It's like it's been a really long time, and they'd kept all this stuff kind of there, and then they decided to sell it eventually. So that's how that happened. But anyways, what makes a B cab versus an A cab? That's a great question for those that don't know. The B cab is the bottom cab that doesn't have an angle on the front. So a Marshall cab that has the top slanted back a little bit, so the speakers aim upwards. That's called an A cab. And then a B cab would be the bottom cabinet. I'll just zoom down to the bottom. Here's another Super chat there. PW says, didn't realize you're an Edmonton native. It's true. My brother lives there now. Beaumaris area. See, I don't know where that is because is that a newer area or maybe it's just somewhere that I wasn't familiar with? But there's Edmonton has expanded so much since I lived there many years ago that I don't know all the newer neighborhoods and stuff. Works at U of A. Visited him and Banff in June. Beautiful time to visit Banff for sure. For those that have never been to Banff, you should go. It looks like Switzerland. It's fantastic. Nicer temperatures than DC in summer, that's for sure. Yeah, yeah. Edmonton's real pretty in the summer. Actually, it can be because it also stays light out so late. So it'll be like light out at 11:30 at night. You can still see some sun on the horizon. It's really cool because you're so far north. And if the weather's good, it's a beautiful thing, but it's not great in the winter, generally speaking. Let's see. Music Life with Arthur Gonzalez says, I went to a guitar store in Jersey yesterday. There was a lot of used gear. Stuff that's normally expensive was going for cheap. Yeah, I'm sort of feeling like, that's just, probably a few different things going on there. Like, I don't know, economy or everybody's just finally like getting rid of amps and using their quad cortexes or axe effects or something. I don't know. Like maybe we're going to see a whole bunch of, things like Marshall cabinets for super cheap, but I mean, if you're guys like me and you still love that stuff, I still love it. So maybe there'll be some deals to be had for us. Let's see. Preston says he's got to go. You got to go watch the Super Bowl, I bet. Have a great week. You too. Yeah, to be honest, I completely spaced that today was going to be the Super Bowl, so it is what it is. But, this is nice of Ben. He says, Holly needs 31 subs to hit 1K. Just saying. She deserves 100,000 or 1,000,000 subscribers because she's so damn good. So everybody go subscribe if you don't mind to Holly's channel, Holly Henderson. She's just a great singer-songwriter in the tradition of great singer-songwriters, female singer-songwriters like Joni Mitchell and Kate Bush and all kinds of special people. So you should go and check out her music because if you like that kind of thing, which I really do, she's something else. Yeah, it's Holly Henderson music. You'll be knocked out if you're a fan of good songwriting. Go check it out. Go give it a listen. Crazy good. Yeah. What else have we got here? There's Ben highlighting Holly's channel there. You guys can click on that. But yeah, if you can't click on active link, just search Holly Henderson music. Yeah. Okay. Tom says the Ingve's secret is donuts. That's not true. Ingve's secret is hard practice. He worked hard. Let's give credit where credit is due. Yeah. Steven says that crazy glue is what I use being a carpenter. I think for he was talking cuts on the fingers, living in dry Edmonton. It's my go-to. Yeah, that's what happens. I came here and my hands just dried out, and then they started splitting. And it doesn't help that you play the Freebird solo every night in a gig too. So, and a win 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 and a win. Ow, split. Then a win and a win and a win and a win. Ow, split. There's also actually what I have been using is not crazy glue so much as the like CVS in the US sells liquid bandage, and that works great. So a little tip there. It's a little less super glue-ish than crazy glue, and a little more just normal. Like how super glue is like if you were to touch your fingers and you're like, I can't pull my fingers apart. It's not quite like that, but it's it does basically the same job. You just drip a layer over top of the split and maybe even hold it together. And then within about 30 seconds, it dries quite quickly and you can build it up a little bit and it works pretty good. And you might just need to put on a new application sort of like once a day, but it'll get you through it. And so check that stuff out if you have issues with that. Let's see. Scott says that he used to have 3 full stacks, 3 different basket weave cabs, sold them to his friend Howard, now of Bad Company. They burned in Malibu. Oh, that sucks. the big fire, I guess, eh? That's really too bad. Yeah, not good. Joe Harvey says he's sickly as well. Just pick up a telly, stupid light. Oh, that's cool. Everybody likes a nice telly. Um, let's see. I'm headed down to the bottom of the chat here. See what you guys are talking about down here. What do you Here's a super chat. What do you use in your studio to switch between multiple heads and different cabs? The Ampete 88R, which is a great thing to have around if you want to switch between heads. I mean, I used to just have a speaker cable and I would literally just plug it into the head and then plug into each amp, and I would switch like that, like manually. But it was a revelation to get the amp switcher, and the guitar goes into the amp switcher, and then all the sends come out of the amp switcher to the front of every amp. A speaker cable comes out of, each amp back to the switcher, and then you can split out to up to 8 different cabinets or load boxes, whatever you want to run to. You can run up to 8 amps and 8 cabs or loads with the 88. So Ampete, Ampete, and it works really well. I like it. I recommend it. What else are you guys talking about here? Let's see. I think that a lot of people who picked up a lot of stuff during lockdown found out they didn't have time enough with the world kicking back in, so they sold stuff, says Music Life with Arthur Gonzalez. Yeah, that could be. I guess so, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I suppose that's one of the reasons, that everybody was looking for hobbies, and I mean, everybody was buying Paleotons and stuff too, right? Because they couldn't go to the gym, so like their stock blew up, and they were like worth a lot of money and stuff. And it was a really difficult time to find a bicycle. I remember going to try and buy a bike, pedal bike, and a road bike, and I couldn't find anything. I ended up getting one that I'm not really that happy with, and now I want to sell it. I'll probably sell it at a big loss because it's probably not hard to buy bikes anymore. Let's see. Crimson says, I'm looking at getting even tried micro pitch delay. Is it worth getting if I only have a 1 amp rig? That's a great question too. You guys are asking some good questions today because it'll be mono, so you get the advantage. It's a cool sound. I mean, it's just kind of a more subtle chorus. It's, still chorus, we call it. It's just blending in a pitch shifted signal. But, the thing is, when you play, you never, you're squeezing strings is slightly different, or bending, and you get a bit of movement in the sound from that, right? As opposed to the sort of the artificial, the delay time changing or whatever happens with a chorus, and the sound kind of doing its chorusing thing. So for those that don't know, micro pitch is basically, it's an eventide effect that was developed originally on the 910, 949, and then H3000, maybe made famous most obviously by Eddie Van Halen on the kind of from 84 onwards. It showed up even earlier than that, but you can really hear it on from 84 to 5150. There's a ton of micro pitch on that, just for a wide sort of stereo sound. But does it work in mono? It does, yeah. And micro pitch is a great way to go if you want some mod, but you don't want it to be that obvious, So that'll work in mono. It's not going to give you any width, but it is going to give you a little bit of that pretty sound, I don't know how else to describe it. It's just got a little bit of a thing to it. That's nice thing to have. A bunch of you signed up for Holly's channel. That's nice. That's awesome. BC Rich says, I'll subscribe to anything that's not illegal. That's no fun. No, that's awesome. You guys all like her too. She's really great. It was so weird. Holly wrote a song about a dog, and I'd forgotten that it was about a dog, and the song is called Windy. And I met a dog named Windy the other day on the train here in the UK. What are the odds that you would meet a dog named Windy, and then the following, like 2 days later, go do a live stream, and she plays the song Windy about a dog? It was just interesting. Seeing eye dog I met on a train the other day. I say met because that dog came up and plopped its head down on my lap. It was a golden retriever lab mix, and was so damn cute. And then, it was with a woman that was, I wouldn't say she was completely blind, but her sight was definitely impaired, even more so than mine. And so she had the guide dog to help her out. The dog was so sweet. It's really cool. I love dogs. I love dogs and cats more than ever these days. Um, let's see. What's your approach to writing a chart for yourself? Says Karen. I rarely write them, to be honest, but if I do, I try and keep it simple. Big, because I'm blind, so great big. I'm not blind, but big block letters of the chords, with divisions for bars and simple notes. Repeat twice, whatever. Very simple, big block. And any other notes I need to remember. Remember the slide or whatever. Like anything that I need to do. We played a song with on the Fight for Fighting tour last summer that I wrote a chart for because it was kind of last minute. And it was like, what is this song? And it was kind of a strange progression. It was like, all right, I don't think I'm gonna get this by the gig, but I feel okay about writing a chart for this and then just following it. And I did, and it was fine. It was great. That's the last time I wrote a chart for myself. Generally speaking, I'm not an advocate just for, like playing live and writing charts and reading them off the stage. It's not something I like to do. I'd rather just memorize a song. So, but that's the last time I remember writing a chart for something and reading it on the gig. Was this past summer. What other jobs have you done in your time before becoming a pro musician? I sold newspaper subscriptions on the phone. That was a nightmare. I worked in music stores. I like a lot in music stores. I taught guitar. I played in bars. I guess that's being a pro musician. But I worked for my father at his car dealership and washed cars for a long time, for like summers, Uh, yeah, that stuff. A lot of retail music store stuff, like from the time I was about 16 onward. I was working in shops, and I think that kind of actually ended up lending itself to, you're a sort of amalgamation of of all the things that you've done. And my time working in shops and familiarizing myself with gear and talking about that obviously probably helped with what I do here, on YouTube. And well, what's the best guitar tuner? Well, I like this one because of this and that, or whatever. Or what pedals do you guys have that do this? Well, let's take a look at these. And some of the shops that I worked in were like the one I worked in for the longest was like a real mom and pop kind of like shopping mall kind of store, but they sold guitars and strings and accessories and stuff and amps. And then I also worked in a vintage store that sold wacky vintage stuff for a long time. Not a long time, but for a while. That like, and this was pre Jack White and pre, that sort of airline guitars and that kind of stuff. But that was what this store really sold a lot of, was kind of funkier stuff. Airlines and Ks and guitars like that. And then also a lot of pedals, vintage pedals, electroharmonics and, fuzz faces and stuff and all kinds of stuff like that. And some vintage guitars that were like Fender Gibson and stuff, but more like player stuff was what came through that store, like things that have been refinned or modded. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of that kind of business. And then, I got a record deal around 95. And that was what really, then that sort of put me on now I'm a professional musician. And I didn't really look back after that as far as getting regular day jobs. Just kind of played music after that. Yeah. Jason's gonna come see us in Inverness, way up there, Scotland. Hope the Highland weather stays reasonable. Yeah, it's cool that it's a little later in the tour, so maybe it'll be. I have this like, I hope maybe the weather warms up a little bit. Usually I do this tour that I'm on right now over here with Classic Rock Show. We do it January, February, but this is going all the way to the third week of March. So, it's like maybe I'm sort of looking forward to, like, is the weather different in the second week of March? Like, because it's always a little like cold and a little drab up here, you know. But having said that, like I said, the weather's actually been really good, and we've had a lot of sunny days. So it's kind of interesting. Uh, have you ever played a David Bray amp? I see Vic Johnson plays them. He modded my '87 JCM 800. It sounds great. You know, I haven't yet, but he contacted me a while ago, and since I've sort of opened up to doing some amplifier demos, we talked about doing it, and I've sort of lost touch with him a little bit. But I need to get back, you know, in touch with him and stuff. So when I come home, we do something. So I'll work on that. I just have never had a chance to play one yet. The London Tube is full of germs. Hope you feel better soon. Looking forward to seeing you at Dorking Halls on Wednesday. I will be there. Super Glue works. Yeah, I'll see you guys there. Please come up and say hi afterwards. Hopefully I feel a little better. The way I'm feeling right now, it's like, why don't you put me on the riser tomorrow that's behind me, and Henry can come down front and play keys? Let me sit down and play tomorrow. I feel like crap right now, to be honest, but I'm all right because I'm sitting down. I've got a runny nose, and just it's not fun. Maybe I'll perk up by tomorrow. We'll see. It's always kind of amazing to me, having said that, how you tend to buy the gig, like, sometimes 10 minutes before the gig, you're like, "How am I gonna get through this?" You know? And you don't feel good. And then when you get on stage, you kinda just rally, and you get the adrenaline, and, like, and then you do it, and you're like, "I should feel pretty good right now," you know? And then, like, by the end of the gig, you're, like, sort of normal. And then, like, half an hour later, you're like, "Oh my god, I feel like hell again." That's kinda how it works, at least in my experience. So I'm hoping for that over the next couple days. uh, that'll be the way that I feel, because it just kind of adrenaline brings you up to, or something brings you up to, you know, and you just do it. You do what you got to do, get the job done, and you feel pretty good during the gig, you know. So that's at least in my experience, you know. So we'll see. Uh, this is good advice too. Anza says, "O'Keefe's working hands cream is great for dry, cracked hands. Works really quick." Yeah, I've got some of the, what's the Norwegian stuff, you know, with the flag on it, and you know, I'm putting a lot of that on. It's like intensive hand repair, and that's helped. It's good stuff. Just moisturizers, you know, you got to do that when you're in this climate, because it's like it's so dry as soon as you get here. Kind of crazy. There's another super chat there. I'll grab that in just a sec. Uh, Kathy says the Birmingham gigs were ace. Thanks. I'm glad you dug it. We had fun too. What app do you use for drums? Says Paul. I use Superior a lot. Superior Drummer 3. I use Easy Drummer 2, another product of theirs that's just a little more basic, but very similar. Sometimes Stephen Slate Drum, sometimes Apple Drummer, Logic Drummer, whatever it's called. Sometimes a program that's a contact plugin, that's Butch Vig drums. You know, the great producer Butch Vig. That's really fun. Yeah. Uh, Ryan says he feels left out because everybody got a new guitar for Guitar Day yesterday. How about you? You know, there's an interesting thing going on this week that involves a guitar that I've always wanted, that I'm sort of working something out on, and it's going to involve a donation to charity and stuff. So I'll tell you more maybe next week or the following week. Maybe would be the time. But it's a long story, and I won't get too into it until I have it, and then I'll show you, because I'm probably gonna make a video about this guitar. But it's an EVH Music Man, one of the original ones that came out in like '93, which is something that I've always wanted. And so it's a long story. I won't tell you the story right now. I'm gonna tell it properly in a video, I think. But that is maybe something that's in a very interesting way kind of coming my way, and it involves a nice fella named Simon, and we'll talk more about that later. But yeah. Braxall says he's trying to use his Roland SRV 2000 with digital interface to use -20 or +4 input. Well, it depends how you're. If you're running out of your interface into it, you probably want to use line level. Like, so in other words, if you're using a send out of Logic or something, and you want to patch in the delay and then come back into Logic, you'd probably, or Pro Tools or whatever, using an interface, you'd use +4, I think. But use what sounds good, and what looks like, lowest noise floor and stuff. And when you're switching between the two, it should be obvious which one is right for your application. It just depends how you're plugging it in. Like if you're plugging the guitar right into it and then coming out of it into something, or if you're running a line level signal into it. So I hope that makes sense. Let's see here. Guitar Ninja says that he just finished Steven Rosen's book, Tone Chaser, about Van Halen. It really highlights what an amazing player and person that he was. Yeah, he was a special cat. There's no denying that. My main man. What are Dan and Mick up to? They're doing really good, as far as I can tell. They were very gracious, and we had fun. And so there'll be an episode that you can see my bloody finger on it, and it was fun hanging out with them the other day. And I kind of just showed them my board and stuff, and I played really loud out there, and I hope I didn't annoy them. But they're great guys. I like them both a lot. So that'll be coming soon. Lamar Brewster says, could you use the amp to run multiple heads into one reactive load? Yes, you can. That's 100% what you can do with it, actually, and then just switch between what head you're running into one load. Can't do it all at once, obviously, but you can switch between multiple heads and then go into one reactive load. Yes, and it just simplifies studio patching and stuff. Which overdrive will you choose to bring to a desert island? Probably a Klon of some sort, because I love them. I'm a Klon guy. You've got the crazy tube circuits unobtainium, speaking of which, on your pedal board. Have you reviewed the brown amplification protein? That doesn't sound familiar, Sandra. No, I haven't. I don't know that one. But I love the unobtainium. Is there power available on desert islands? There could be. Who knows? Yeah. Let's see. Sorry if you've already spoken about it, but have you tried Tonex for capturing amps? I did, actually. I have one. I haven't had enough time with it, I feel like. I'm not sure I was using it right, is my comment so far. That I don't think I was maybe patching it in exactly right. And I might just ask Michael Nielsen to come over and help me with it. Because I think I was doing something wrong when I patched in. I was able to get results, but they didn't sound exactly like my amp. But I'm not gonna put that on the box yet. I don't know if I was doing it right. It does require a little bit of patching, so more on that later. I just didn't have time before I left for this tour to really get super deep into it. So it's kind of hot in here, so I think I'm gonna get a heater going here. I'm gonna unplug it because it's like a little space heater in it. And just one sec, because my nose is running. Because that's how it is here today. Yeah. That's the way it was. Okay. Would you recommend a Strandberg? I don't know much about those guitars. I've only played them in Japan and picked them up and kind of spent a little time with them. And I thought they were really interesting. The back shape of the neck was super bizarre to me. But people that play them like them. And, I've got friends that use them and seem to, Lisa Lee, she uses them sometimes. And she likes them because she had back issues. She plays with Gwen Stefani and other people. And they're very light without a headstock and stuff. And so they work well for her. I can't think of other people that I know real well that use them, but I think it's just a matter of, getting used to different things. And, it's like whatever works, man. Saw you in the Lowry the other week. Oh, where's that? Is that Basingstoke or no? Or is that the Anvil? I can't remember which gig that was, but anyways, cool, man. Thanks. I'm glad you liked it. We've been having fun for sure. Uh, yeah, 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 yeah. Getting through the chat here. What's the best option for someone who wants to not carry any empty gigs and can't pay 2 grand on a quad Cortex? There's so many good options. I mean, a Helix Stomp is a really good little box that basically is a Helix that sounds really good, and it's the size of a delay pedal. The UA pedals that are like the one sound jobbies, if all you're going to do is maybe run some pedals, you could get like the Dream one, that's the Fendery one, and run some overdrives into it, and that'd be okay. The Head Rush, the little guy, it's like called a GX5 or something. I can't remember exactly, but it's got a little expression pedal on it, and they're quite inexpensive. And then there's a new X one called a Trident that I'm supposed to make some presets for, and they've been being very patient with me, and I appreciate that. But those are interesting too. So there's all kinds of stuff out there, that you can get. Have you tried the TC Mimic? I did try that. Yeah, it basically does a short delay on your second amp and then allows you to get a little bit of spread. I didn't really understand it when I was using it, but I did try it for a second. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Let's see. This is interesting. Back to the micro pitch question. I have a micro pitch algorithm, my H90 in mono, about 9% mix, makes things bigger, but it's not an obvious thing. Yeah, it's a subtle effect, micro pitch, and it can work great if you just blend it in a little bit. Certainly, if you've got a stereo rig and you just blend it in a little bit, it's like where it just starts to get wider. It's very cool because you can't perceive it as like a chorus or obvious modulation, but it does help to spread the sound and give you a little bit of a stereo thing. So, because I think everybody thinks like, oh, it's got to be one or the other. It's either Eddie Van Halen on the 5150 album or it's off. No, it's like you can actually blend it in so you can barely hear it, and then you won't perceive it as modulation, and it just sounds really good. It's like, well, let's just get a little wider and really cool, So it's part of the reason why I have I've got an H3000 plugin up in my DAW on my standard sort of template, and you can just. Sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. God, I hate colds, man. Anyways, H3000 plugin on the DAW, and then you can just blend it in at like 5% or 10%, and it just makes everything get a little wider. I mean, you can use it on snare drums. You can use it on like all kinds of things. Vocals, it's classic on vocals, and it just works beautifully. So yeah. All right, I'm gonna head down to the bottom of the chat here, but as I go, I'm gonna hit these super chats. Um, get to feeling mo better. Rock faces off. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for the super chat. I will. I'm doing my best. I'm trying. I'm super stuffy right now. It's like this cold is evolving on an hour by hour basis. Hi, Vincent. How you doing, dude? What's up? Music Life says, I have no idea how to program drums. Well, that's why you need Easy Drummer, because they don't call it Easy Drummer for nothing. Easy and Superior are quite simple to use, and especially Easy Drummer. And if you work in Pro Tools or GarageBand, or I think it'll work in GarageBand or Logic, you just pull it up on an instrument track, and you are given a selection of grooves. You can tap in a kick and snare pattern. It'll spit out here's a bunch of grooves like with that kick and snare pattern or close to it. And then you can assemble them into a song with fills and everything and just drag and drop. It's so simple. You don't have to, there's not really any programming going on. It's so easy. So look at Easy Drummer and I think you'll see how cool it is. This is interesting. Did you do the ABBA voyage with the band the other night? If so, what did you think of the tech? So this is this ABBA show that's going on at a purpose-built arena facility outside of London, sort of on the outskirts of London, and it's quite spectacular. So you go see essentially an ABBA concert. There's a live band, but the band, the ABBA people are essentially holograms. Now, it's not like they're actually holograms. It's like a LED screen, and I guess they were filmed as holograms. But the LED screens they're doing now are so crazy looking that the depth makes it look 3D. So it was cool. It was very interesting, and it it looks quite realistic, and also just the depth and the way that they had everything in the venue. Like they had all these light ball things that would come down from the ceiling all the way up to the stage and then all the way through, and that gave it depth. And then the screen in the front, and there was it was just like they did basically tricks with screens and stuff to make it have this depth where it really looked like, and it was cool. It was interesting. I have mixed feelings about it. I had a good time going to see it. I think that nothing will ever replace, actual real musicians being there, but it was neat. I liked at the spoiler alert, for those that haven't been. At the end, they sort of show them as they look now, because the ABBA whatever characters that are in it are like they looked in 1979. But at the end, you do see them in the way they look now, and they kind of virtually come out and take a bow, that kind of thing, which is classy. It was a very nice touch. I thought it was really cool. I thought it would be neat if they did a run of them or something where they were actually there, and like, because these people aren't dead, they're still around. And I thought it'd be nice if maybe they do I mean, this arena it's an amazing concept, because it's like it's made to be packed up and shipped, as I understand it. Arena. It's a portable arena, but it's an actual arena that you can disassemble and then move around the world. So they will take this thing to other places and do it for sure. I mean, I was like, oh, I could see this happening in Vegas for sure, or in different, locales, right? And it's just it's a moneymaker. There's merch, there's, the whole 9 yards. So, I mean, I was even surprised afterwards the bar was open, like after the show, that they just kept selling drinks and stuff like super late. It's like these guys are minting money right now. It was really interesting, but it was a interesting concept for a concert, like it's for entertainment. It was kind of this hybrid entertainment thing that was uh yeah, it was curious and interesting. So uh Ben Tom is talking about the Music Man guitar I was talking about, and he says that Music Man, Music Man, was 91. Yeah, the one that I'm looking at is a 93. I do believe it's just a couple years after they first came out, right? And they think they made them till 95 and 96 or something, right? So yeah. What else you guys talking about here? Let's see. Can someone recommend good cheap monitors for Axe FX home studio? I had a pair of Tenoys that were really cheap, that were just little guys with like 5-inch drivers. They were okay. I would spend the money on Atoms because I really like them. I like the Atom. I don't know the exact. Are they called TV5s or something? I don't remember, but they're around $3.99 a pair, or something like that. Sorry, $3.99 each. I think they were like 600 or 700 for two, which is like half the price of the A7Xs. Um, anyways, they're not super inexpensive, but they're not, you know, super expensive either. I think they were 300 each or something like that for the ones that I got. And they're a 5-inch with the ribbon tweeter and stuff. And I really like those. Having said that, a lot of people like the K Rocks, the KRKs. I like what Yamaha has in that price range too, 200 or 300 a monitor. So look at some of those. Yeah. Is the Sir Bella loud enough for on stage without breaking up? Oh yeah, it is. I'm only running it on like 2, and actually we started using Plexi this week, which I don't mind at all. We got some screens from ClearSonic, and we put them in front of the cabs, and the net result is pretty cool. I've got it only covering half of my 412, but all of the combo. It's kind of interesting. The Bella was the one that the sound guy was sort of having the most issues with, sort of being loudest in the audience, and that's my clean amp. And so I just put the screen about 2.5 feet in front of it, and then where I'm standing, I'm still hearing it, like, basically it sounds a little middier, a little boxier because 'cause it's got the plexi in front of it, but it's coming over the top, obviously, and I'm still hearing it direct from the and it's just fine. It's minimally different, it doesn't bother me at all, and I think I've even been noticing less ringing in my ears after gigs, because when I walk out, those amps, we angle them kind of so that they're facing inwards. They're not facing out from the back of the stage. They're kind of facing into the middle so as to avoid a beam out in the audience. They kind of face across the stage, not completely, but that's the way we've been angling. So my left ear gets hit by the 412 as well as the Bella. Well, with the screens there, I can kind of get it's like I don't mind them at all. I can actually like get in a position where it's just enough screen and just enough openness where it's not such a direct blasting into my left ear thing when I'm standing, say, 15 feet away from my 412 or something. It's just kind of like I can hear that perfectly right now because the only monitors on stage are my wedges and James's wedge over on the other side of the stage. And then other than that, I'm listening to like the acoustic snare on the stage. That's how I'm. So we don't have to be that loud up there. I can hear the drums coming off the stage, and I've got a little, coming off of my wedges and stuff. And then I just balance my cabs with the plexi and all that. It works really good. So, but yeah, the Bella has got plenty of nuts. It's 44 watts is more than enough clean headroom for a Fendery. I mean, it's as much power as something like a super reverb, right? So, there's a couple of super chats here I got to get to. So I'm gonna grab those as I head down here. Let me see. There's one I just missed, a super chat. Andy Racks the Cams. What's up, man? Your drums are always perfect. It's like you have a resident Brian Downey, always amazing, but never too big a Superman. Hope you feel better soon. Thanks, man. You have a break coming up. I do, man. We got 3 more gigs and then I'm going to LA for about 10 days. So I just hope I get better for the flight. That's my main thing. Is like, I'm like, oh man, now I've got this cold. So I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the flight is on Thursday. So we'll see how I do. I hate flying with a head cold. I just hope it's a quick in and out, like 3 more days, and then I start feeling better and I can just take some Dayquil or whatever, and it's like all good. But that's not generally how things go for me. When I get a cold like this, they tend to wipe me out for a while. So I just got to think positive and get a good night's sleep tonight and hope for the best. We will see. We will see. We will see. Life goes on, doesn't it? Until it doesn't. What else? What else? What else you guys talking about? Let's see. Here's Ian Ferguson. Thanks for the super chat there. And Ian, thank you as well. With the stereo rig, is there a huge disadvantage not having matching cabinets? It could be an advantage, I've blended 2 different cabinets before. It's all good. I mean, it's like as long as you can balance the volume of the 2 sides, it might be really neat to have one side be a Marshall through greenbacks and the other side be a high watt with Fanes or something, and have a blended sound that's, maybe panned like 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock or something. And, so there's no rules. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. You've got an ADA rack, so you're probably using a stereo power amp or something like that with the ADA preamp or different kind of preamp, but it's all good. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly the same. It could be a more complex blend with 2 different cabinets, or maybe not. Maybe it won't sound as good as having the matching cabs, but you never know. Fantastic show last night at Cadogan Hall. We had a quick chat after the show about my gold top. Hey, man, yeah, great to see you here. And thanks again for continuing to inspire. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah, it was nice to meet you, and thanks for getting the guitar. It's got one of my original signatures. Yeah, that's awesome. And thank you. David, saw you last year in Newcastle. It was great. Just deciding whether to go to see you at Sunderland or Gateshead. That's a good question. Are we playing Gateshead again at Newcastle? Same venue. That's a great venue. It's a beautiful rock and roll venue. So I thought we were playing somewhere else, but I guess maybe not. Maybe we are playing there. That's cool. Go there. Can't go wrong. Yeah. Okay. I'm just reading some questions here. Naive Steve says Easy Drummer will have to be drumming for dummies for me. Easy Drummer is really easy, man. It's simple. There's no programming going on. It's very straightforward. Scott says you need some chicken noodle soup and ginger ale for your cold. Yeah, yeah. I took yesterday. I had the day before and yesterday I had real ginger shots with turmeric and all that. Burned the hell out of my throat with it, and the whole 9 yards. I still got sick. So I don't know if any of that stuff works, to be honest. The good old white blood cells, they work. Get in there and but I try. I always try. Oh, let's take some echinacea. Let's take some vitamin C. Let's get some supplemental turmeric and ginger. And then I'm always disappointed when I get sick. I just got an SL67 starting to worry I should have gotten the 68. How come? What would you say? There are better tones, or is it more about volume? A 67 is great, man. I mean, honestly, I like 51 amps. I'm using the 68 out here, and there's a little more bold or whatever to 100 watt or whatever. But then again, I'm taming it with a load box, and I run the master down a little bit. So it's like I think you're just fine with the SL67, to be honest. It's a little more compact, a little lighter in the small box chassis head shell. And I wouldn't stress about it. I think you're fine, Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Let's see. What else we got here? This stream needs more likes, says Ben Kuhn. Everybody hit that like button. I'm just going to gratuitously ask for it. Hit the thumbs up. Why not? We're having fun, aren't we? Aren't we? No, I'm having fun. I'm glad I'm here with you guys. This always makes me feel good. I'm sorry it's Super Bowl Sunday as well, and that some of you are, probably torn between watching the Super Bowl or watching a sick guy talk about guitar gear. Did you make the right decision? Warrior of Genghis Khan is suggesting vitamin D3 for colds. Really? I've never heard that one before. Maybe vitamin D. Vitamin D is what you get when you're out in the sun, right? Good stuff. Okay, there's a super chat from Corey. 2 here in a row. Is this the first time you took the Scala on tour? No. The Scala, actually, I bought that guitar in 2014 and I took it on tour immediately. So Leo, it's kind of a funny story. I was living in Santa Monica at the time, and I was dating somebody at the time whose little boy used to go to a school there, and Leo's kid went to the same school, and that's where I met him, in the schoolyard, randomly, and taking kids to school, and he said, "Hey man, I know who you are. Like, you should check out one of my guitars sometime." And I'm like, "Okay, like, who's this guy?" I didn't know who he was. So let me come by and I'll bring it by. Where's your? I said, "We'll come by my studio sometime." And he brought by an Underdog that he'd made for Richard Fortus from Guns N' Roses, and it was super cool. It was like, "Oh, this guitar is awesome," and it basically looks exactly like mine. And I said, "Can you make me one just like this?" And just sort of without even talking about money or anything, I was like, "Yeah, make me one of these." And he was like, "Okay." So he made me one, and then he sold it to me for a really nice price. But he literally came and gave it to me in a Starbucks parking lot one morning in Santa Monica and passed it off to me. And it was great. But I was like, "Okay, this is awesome. I got to go on tour now." I was going on first tour I was doing with Tyoshi Nagabuchi in Japan, and I literally had to ship my gear the next day. So I just went to my vault later that day where my gear was stored and stuff, and I put that guitar in the vault. And I just thought, I don't know, I'll just take a chance to take this guitar to Japan. And it ended up really becoming sort of one of my main guitars on that tour. Certainly my main Les Paul style guitar. I played Sirs and other things as well, but for a Les Paul, when you need a Les Paul, that was what I played. And it just there's something about it with the great big 6100s. They're as undressed as possible. It's just got this real grip on the neck for a Les Paul that feels really good. And it's got an unfinished back of the neck. And it just like things we like about super shredder guitars from the 80s. like a real grip on the neck with the big frets and the unfinished neck and stuff, but it's a Les Paul sort of neck. And it just was a cool combination of things, and tones were great. And I've played it a lot since then on tours. I've, took it all over the place and used it in many, many different gigs and stuff. And I've had it almost 10 years now. So it's a really good guitar. And no, I don't worry about taking guitars on the road, really. I mean, I've taken vintage guitars on the road and stuff. I take them out and play them. I want them to be used. So, um, you know, yeah. Great to see and meet you in Yeovil earlier this week. I'm the nerd who was asking about your experience at 5150. Cool. Thanks for inspiring me, excuse me, to keep playing and learning. Thanks, Lee. It's great to see you here, and nice to chat with you the other night. Yeah, man. Got to keep going. We got to keep moving forward. And I appreciate you coming to the Yeovil gig. We did 2 gigs there. The first one was great and, pretty much sold out. And the second one was like light, it was like kind of not as many folks, but it was an intimate show because of that. It's a smaller town. And so when I heard we were doing 2 shows there, I was like, really? But sometimes those gigs, it's interesting. It's like you got to play the same show no matter how many people you've got there, Go out and do the show. Those people, if there's 12 people there, they paid money to come see you. Go out there and play. There was more than 12 people. But, when you get used to playing for 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000 people or 800 people or whatever it is, the crowds, and then, you might get one that's 300 people, and you go and it's like, oh, not that many people out there tonight. Okay, but then you go and you do the same show anyway. And it's not about that. It's about like being professional, and those people paid to come see you, and they want to do a great gig. So that's my memory of the second night. I can't remember if I saw you the first night or second night, Lee. Yeah. But anyways, I do remember you. Let's see. What else are you guys talking about? Are you streaming any of your shows? No, but they tend to film them and then, make DVDs or concert movies or whatever you want to call it out of them now. So I think they want to do that with this year's show. We'll see. Although I don't know that they have a set in stone plan to do that with this one, but we shall see. Let's see. Do you take airborne or anything with zinc to help you with a cold? I I don't really. Nothing ever helps my cold. When I get a cold and stuffy and stuff, I just let it ride. I drink a lot of water. That helps, and I take Dayquil, and that helps you get through the day. Helps you function. Get some fresh honey and zinc lozenges. I got some great cough drop kind of menthol lozenges that are amazing here. I can't remember what they're called. I've got them in my jacket over there. They're pretty incredible. They're like super menthol. Still want to hear the 40-foot Echo record. It's streaming everywhere. Go check it out. It's on Spotify and iTunes and all that. Apple Music. That was my band back 20 years ago. Yep. Let's see. Do they put you in business class for long flights? Different gigs I've had will do business class, depending on the gig. It's something you tend to work out in your deals. This isn't really one of those types of gigs. So it's like you have to, use miles and work the angles. Yeah, it just depends, depends on the gig. What else are we doing here? Is there a PT2 gold top? Like my new signature guitar? Thought about doing it in gold. I think it'd look great in gold, actually. Just gold with the black pickguard and everything. But we opted to do the sort of Inca silver. It's kind of a pewter color, really, instead, just as something different, But I really like gold, and I wouldn't be opposed to doing it in gold at some point at all, So, yeah, we'll see. Have you ever played Red Rocks? I have. Yeah, I played Red Rocks in 2006. But that's the only time It was really cool. A long time ago, but I hope to play there again. Diego Costa says, I'm the kid that got the shirt signed at the Malvern gig. What's up? When's the next EVH video coming? Love the channel, big inspiration. Keep it up. EVH video. Well, down the road a little bit, there'll be something coming. That's kind of an EVH themed video, I guess. So, not for a little bit, but relatively soon. Can't really get into it more than that. Let's see what else we got here. Shot of tequila with lemon slice and spoonful of honey. Hot and sour soup and sushi with wasabi. All you guys with your cold remedies. You know what I'm going to take tonight is stuff called Night Nurse, which is basically NyQuil. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Hit that like button, says Ibajarj. Thank you, man. Ben says that he's got Charles Green on his show tonight, so check out Ben's show later, please. Sick guy talking guitar gear, the clear winner for me over the Super Bowl. That's awesome. Thanks. Is it pre-game crap right now? Somebody said pre-game crap. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's like an hour of stuff before. I don't know. I can't figure out where to watch the Super Bowl here. I have to do it online. And once again, I've got to go over here because we've got runny nose issues. That's what we've got. So, when nature calls, we do what needs to be done, don't we? All right. Back to guitars. How do you find AC15s with mid to high gain overdrive distortion pedals? It a lot depends on with Voxes on the pedal and if you're plugging into a top boost channel or any kind of brilliant channel or the normal channel. Like a thing of beauty can be, well, a treble booster or obviously Brian May, that whole situation, or an original or the yellow one, the Carl Martin Plexitone into a normal channel of a Vox is pretty awesome. That's a great sound, that's a high gain overdrive distortion pedal, the original Carl Martin, or the yellow one, the one that I sort of helped voice. That's a great sound going into the normal channel because that pedal has a lot of bottom and a lot of sizzly presence on the top end. So it won't work into a top boost, but it'll work into the normal channel great. It'll sound like a big hot Marshall or a small hot Marshall, I guess, because it's an AC15. But yeah, long story short, you just have to kind of tailor the like Voxes can be finicky with pedals, both overdrives and distortions. Those out there that that have tried them know what I'm talking about. But if you find the right combo, it can be really brilliant. It just depends on the particular pedal and the particular Vox circuit, because not all Vox circuits are created equal. You got your normal channel, you got your top boost channel, you got your brilliant channel, which is not the same as top boost. Yeah, so there's a lot there to try and just see what works. I mean, to me, a top boost is like you need a warm overdrive going into a top boost as sort of a general rule, or a warm distortion or a warm fuzz. You can't really hit a top boost channel with something that's bright and crunchy, or it's just going to sound really bad. And then the EQ on a Vox is so interesting and kind of weird, where when you turn the treble and bass down, you get more mids coming out. As you turn up the treble and the bass, the mids kind of scoop out, and it does this weird thing that's very interactive. So it really is, it's not a great answer, but it's very dependent on the particular pedal going into what particular Vox circuit that you're using. Because if you're running into a normal channel, you basically just got a gain stage and then a cut control, and that's it. You don't have there's no tone stack. It's such a sort of primitive, simple circuit, but with the right distortion, it can sound. You've basically just got straight up amplification, and then you hit that with a range master, or you hit that with, like I say, with a plexitone. It sounds like really cool. All the kind of like distortion and really most of the tone shaping is coming out of the pedal into that one tube gain stage kind of thing out into the power amp. So anytime you get into a top boost, now you're adding a proper tone stack and another gain stage and it's a different sound. Where can one get a Scala? He's got an Instagram, Leo Scala, like you see spelled there. And you could probably send him a message there. And he custom makes guitars for people. I don't know what his time is like these days and if there's a waiting list or what, but I think he does a lot of work for Gibson Custom Shop now and stuff, so I'm just not really sure, but yeah. Here's a super chat or two. Thank you guys for all the super chats this week. I really appreciate it. AC15 Classic 1 with greenback not liking lots. Think blues will be better. An AC15 with a greenback, which is how mine came, because I have one of those, one of the hand-wired ones, the kind of tweedy look, or what's it called, fawn, or I don't know, the color of it's like a lighter cabinet. Pretty good sounding amp, but mine came with the greenback as well, and I don't like it sounds cool, but it's not the Vox sound to me. It's not a bad sound, it just doesn't sound exactly like what those amps are supposed to sound like. I saw something today where somebody was talking about them going, the real sound that we think of with those amps is the silver Alnicos from like the early, like when people talk about the top boost sound or whatever. It's not like the blue doesn't really sound like that. And I would agree with that. The silver ones sound a little darker and warmer to me, and they kind of offset the crazy chime the amp has and stuff in the front end. But a blue can be a good thing. I mean, there's other Alnico speakers you could put in there, maybe an Alnico Cream, actually. That's a lovely sounding speaker. But yeah, long story short, you kind of want an Alnico that is something akin to, it's just a different sound. The compression of them and everything is a big part of like a greenback, which is great with Marshalls, doesn't sound sort of sophisticated enough to me with Voxes. Does that make sense? Sounds snobby, but the type of bounce and kind of compression and all that stuff, a big part of it to me is the speaker. Yeah. That's my honest assessment. Andy with a super chat. Thanks, man. Whiskey, that is what you need. A nice PD. Yeah, maybe. I might go investigate that after we're done here, actually. You're kind of talking me into it. I mean, just an ounce, single shot of whiskey might be nice tonight before bed. I think I'm going to try and go to bed relatively early, at least by 11 or something. So watch some TV and stuff and then crash out. Yeah. Okay. Do you have a cold? Says Todd. Yeah, I got a head cold. I'm just like nasal bullshit, and not fun. What do you think? Some great guitar players are so particular about every specific of the guitars, while others are like whatever, everything's good. Well, and there's a lot of in between, right? I don't know. I go through phases. Like yesterday, I was doing a live stream with Holly, if she's still here, and they had set up an amp for me when I got there, and they asked me if if you want to, you can jam a little, because she played a few songs from her album, and I was like, they were like, you can pick a different guitar if you want. No, whatever you set up for me is great, and it was a Gretsch, which I don't normally play, with a kind of a sparkle finish. I don't even know what model it was, but it had Filtertrons, and just kind of put the pickup switch in the middle position. It felt nice, and they had a little Fender. I didn't even tune. I just kind of picked up the guitar, and I had a pick. I was like, it's kind of cool when you don't even have a pick, and you're like, can I borrow a pick? And then they just give you whatever pick, and okay, let's see what music this makes. I actually really quite enjoy that process, where it's not like a thought through thing, or where you're super picky about I need these frets and I need this pickup to make my sound. So it's really fun sometimes when people just stick a guitar in your hands and say, okay, what comes out? What music will you make? So anyway, fun. I guess Rihanna's doing the halftime show or something, right? Is Nuno going to be playing with her tonight? I have no idea. I have no idea. Uh, let's see. I have seen a few decent shows, YouTube videos of shows from this tour. I hope they're at least decent. I hope so. um, yeah, yeah. Uh, snort some antihistamine pills. Well, I'm gonna take some night nurse later, which is basically like NyQuil, which has definitely got antihistamine in it. Uh, yeah. How's the gigs going? Cold? Welcome to the UK. Yeah, I know there's a lot of coughing and sniffling and sneezing and disease going on here, isn't there? The Black Plague. It's kind of how it is over here in the winter. Thinking about putting a switch on my Marshall SV20 for the bright cap. Would you recommend doing it? Yeah. Put a three-way toggle that has off 100 and 4700. Great. Get a whole bunch of sounds in. You'll love it. You'll love it. Should have released a video of the Malta show. Some great footage on the wall of the fort and from the drone. I would love to see that. This is a show that we did with this band that I play with now, Classic Rock Show. We did a gig in Malta this past September, and it was a blast. It was like an outdoor party, like on the there's a big Malta is basically a giant fort. For those that don't know where Malta is, it's a really cool but basically tiny rock of an island that's somewhere between Libya and Italy, essentially, and it's heavily fortified forts, and we did a gig at the fort. It was called Rock the Fort, so that's the fort he's mentioning, and it was really fun. Let's see. At some point, I know we're all kind of guilty. This is great, Michael. At some point during a bad cold, I walk into a Whole Foods and say, "I'll buy whatever holistic BS you're selling," right? And just in the hopes that you want to feel better. And I totally have done that too. Like you end up spending $87.50 on like 4 things, and like hope for the best, and none of it does any good anyway. And then you're 3 weeks later, you're still sniffling and just getting out of it, right? That's generally my life too. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Let's see. Do you watch Star Wars stuff? How about Kids in the Hall? I like Kids in the Hall. Kids in the Hall was a great Canadian TV comedy troupe. I loved Kids in the Hall. Brain Candy is one of my favorite movies of all time. I feel better, Pete. What was or is your favorite amp rig tones you've ever played live? Probably whatever I'm using at the current time. I'm really enjoying what I'm playing through right now. I mean, there's moments in this set where I'm laying into the SL68 and it just feels so like good, like it just is the right volume. And I love playing a plexi style amp, I must say, as much as I love my signature amps and everything too. And the way that we'll go with that as we come up with new ones is I want to try and get really close to that sound in my signature amp, just a little different than, I don't know. I just the SL. It's just like it's such a good sounding amp. For those people out there that have tried one, know what I'm talking about. A Plexi is just kind of perfect. It's like just the right overdrive, and especially at volume, because they can sound like they don't have as much gain as you might like for whatever or something. If you're running them on 6 or 7 or 8 at a lower volume through with an attenuator or something, right? When you get it on stage and it's actually cranked up and it's pretty loud, it's like there's plenty of gain because the volume gives you the sustain and the feedback and stuff. I mean, and then when I kick on the Klon style drive in front, I can get endless sustain in it, which I do in the show a couple times where I'm just grabbing a note and I hold it for like 16 bars. And just, it's so cool. It's so cool. I've become very, very, very more adamant about like, I'm just, especially for a show like this, like classic rock show. I mean, okay, pop gigs or whatever, if you do them, I get it. It might not be the appropriate thing anyway. It doesn't really matter. But a show like this, that's classic rock songs, I'm just so not interested in doing some sort of sanitized version of it with modelers or anything like that. I mean, having said that, I did, I used the Quad Cortex in Malta, and it worked great, but I still had it running through a power amp and cabinet on stage. That's my point. Is the interaction? It's not actually the tube amp thing. It's the interaction between the amp, speaker cab, and the guitar, and being able to hear it and get some feedback. I get feedback on every song. I'm like constantly going over the cabinet, making my guitar feedback. It's such a big part of like what I like about playing guitar. I don't ever want to not have that. It's like it's boring to me if you can't have that. Lee says you look knackered. I am, man. I'm totally knackered right now, but it's just because I'm sick. So I've been fine. I mean, the last few days were good in London. Stuff that today it just hit me and nailed me. But I'll get through it. I always do. Yeah. Any tips on a P90 pickup height? I get high enough to get balls and I lose definition. Get it low enough to get a clear sound, not enough fatness. That's interesting. Get lost in finding the balance. Well, maybe you want to try a different P90. I don't know. I guess that's probably kind of a common problem with them. Is this single P90 or is it two pickups? Because I know, like, if you've got a neck P90, they can tend to, like a Strat. I think people have stratitis problems or P90-itis problems where sometimes if you get them up too high, they can start to pull on the string a little bit. I think that's the thing with P90s too. I know like Phil X likes one bridge pickup because of that. He doesn't like having the neck one because he feels like the guitar sounds more open, I think, or something. Did you guys see I was gonna ask you about John 5 playing with Motley this week. Anybody watch that? He did a couple gigs already. I think they did Atlantic City and then maybe one somewhere else. John looked like he was having fun. For sure. How about a Randy video? Seeing you got to play one of his guitars. I kind of did that in that video. I mean, I did make that Randy video. Maybe you didn't see the YouTube video. Maybe you just sort of saw what I did on Instagram. But there was a whole thing I did where I played. Is it Flying High Again? I think. Yes. On that Randy Rhoads R3, the kind of the third prototype they made for Randy that I was able to borrow for about a week. Too long, actually. I wanted that thing out of my studio. Sometimes it's like I don't want this guitar around because it's like it's worth a lot of money. And notice you're the only one on stage not using in your monitors. You must be thrilled given your dislike of them. I like them for some things sometimes, and I do wear them on like 3 songs. I actually am wearing them on a few songs, but I've got it down to the point now where I don't have to, and I do prefer to not have them in. It's just easier, It's easier to navigate a stage for me and find the fun areas where I can stand and hear. I like to hear the crowd and all that. I've talked about it at length before. It's just cool, and yeah, it's great that they accommodate me with that. How was it hanging at Brian Ray's? Great. He's got a beautiful place. We're old friends, so I've hung out with Brian over the years numerous times at his various residences, but he's a heck of a guy, and we had such a fun time doing that gig in Palm Springs together. I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed playing with him again, and he's a great guitar player. He's a great musician, and he's the real deal. Just terrific. So, oh, I see. I didn't really remember that everybody's saying there's like 8 hours of pregame. Maybe not 8, right? But plenty of pregame. Well, that's good that I didn't interrupt anybody's, the actual game today, the Super Bowl. Lots of fluids and rest. I'm drinking lots of fluids. I just drank a whole bottle of sparkling water, like a big tall one, at dinner, and then I've just had a tea right now. So more water and stuff. And then I'm gonna go to bed here in a little bit. So stuffy right now. Colds are so funny how they like work their way through. Like now it's here, now it's there. Hopefully tomorrow it's not a terrible cough. That's my least favorite. Some super chats. James, what's up, man? Thanks so much for all you do for the community. Seeing you in Dartford. Cool. Sir Ombre Brown Face. Now that's a fine sound. It sure is. Really nice. Slush and Gold Cab, and off you go. Favorite speaker for a brown amp? Well, so I think that for me, because I'm sort of not I'm not a Fender expert by any stretch, but I understand those amps now. Those 62, 63. I mean, the circuit and how it's a little proto Marshall and stuff like that. So I think he's just using a V type maybe in the Ombre, I think, which sounds really good to me in the video that I made for it. But something greenbacky would be killer, in that amp. Maybe a high power. I mean, it doesn't have to be high power, but maybe not at 20. Well, I mean, the amp's only like, doesn't matter, does it? A scumbag or an A type might be really cool. Actually, I love those because they have no harsh. They sound kind of like a greenback. Really, they're supposed to be an American sounding speaker, but they really sound greenbacky to me. But like a worn-in greenback, or maybe even a Celestian Neo creamback, because it'd cut the weight of the combo a little. I would try all those greenback, Neo creamback, scumbag M75, maybe an M75 with a paper voice coil. Because isn't the amp only like 12 watts? So you'd be fine with the paper voice coil. Scummy. Probably sound just really great. Yeah, uh-huh. What high gain amp can also give you a semi-clean tone? I want the Soldano SLO 100, but will it clean up? Yeah, I mean, they've got a clean channel that is quite nice. To me, it's not like a PT. I mean, a high gain amp that does a semi-clean tone. I mean, my PT 115 are exceptional at that. So if you want to look at those, I think that to be honest, I like the clean channel on my amps more than most channel switchers. I mean, John's kind of legendary for that. His clean channel was like the bee's knees, on an OD 100. It's basically a straight up kind of Fender Twin meets super sort of thing. And it just sounds juicy and great with pedals and stuff, and it's terrific. But you can also grind it up a bit and stuff. And on the 100, there's the crunch switch, so you can kick that in and get a little sort of Fender flavor crunch out of it. Yeah. Let's see. 7-string guitars. I've never owned a 7-string. Tony McAlpine asked me once, like, why don't you play 7-string? I'm like, I don't know. It's just kind of not my thing. I don't know, but I would like to have one, to be honest. I do like baritones, and that's kind of more my vibe, I guess. Like tuned down to B baritone. I like that. Let's see. Ben Tom says that he's got over 50 pounds of empty beer bottles. Dude, you got to take him to the depot. Get some money. There's that question about the height of P90s. I'm just not sure, man, about that. That's a good question for someone like Sir. But it could be that you just need a different P90, Let's see. How about you and some of the other classic rock guys doing a Rush tribute tour, says Steve. So we play YYZ in the show, and it's so much fun to play that song. And I feel like we do play it really well. It's a blast. But let's see here. Super chat, Pete. People, he's not well. That's okay. You guys have been very kind with the super chats. I'm gonna go and do. I'll go to Boots tomorrow and buy some more cold medicine. I'll be all right. Appreciate that though. And speaking of one, here's one from John. Hey bud, getting ready to order your new SIG. How beefy is the soft V? It's there's definitely some meat to it. Neck shape was great, but everything else was wrong. Bonus is yours is cheaper. And that's the truth. Like when it comes to prices, my guitars are not like they're right in there at the bottom end of what a Fender custom shop costs. So, and so is a custom shop. So, yes, they're not inexpensive guitars, but they're made in California and it's a custom made, it's a custom shop guitar. And they basically, yeah, come in right at the bottom end of what I see Fender custom shop being. It's a 1 in 6.87 width nut. So the nut is slightly wider than your average Surs, just a hair, but it gives it a slightly bigger feel. And then with the V, I would say it's very 60s feeling. I mean, it's not dissimilar to my 64 Strat at all. It's not really a V, like when you think of a 57 Fender Strat V kind of thing. Doesn't have that much of a V, but there's a hint of a V all the way up to about the 4th or 5th fret. And just a hint, and then after that just kind of becomes a nice full C. But still not with too much shoulder, because I don't like the necks when they get too big and too much shoulder. And it feels great. I mean, I've grown very, very used to the neck, and I love my red one, especially. I have such a great time with that guitar. Lauren saying that Friedman said on Tone Talk his Vox style unit's well developed and the prototypes will be done soon. Yeah, he's been working on a Vox style amp. I do feel like there's a lack of Vox style amps out there. It's like it's such a great sound, and there's not a ton. I mean, there used to be, I'm not sure if Hayseed's still around or Jam-I or these different companies, but long story short, it's sort of hard to find it seems like there's a ton of boutique plexi out there or that style of amp or Marshall flavor stuff, but not a ton of Vox, and it's such a good sound. So it'll be good to have something out there, something else that's of that ilk. Previous username says, I never got into Vox amps. Classic Marshall sounds, occasionally do a rec from more modern. I like Marshall cleans. Well, that's cool. Different strokes, I mean, I love Marshall cleans too, but I do love a Vox for a certain thing. It's when you want that sound, it's that sound. And it's like there's no substitute to me. There's no way to get it really with a pedal or other amps or stuff. If you want that Vox thing, it's very special. Like not even an AC50 really sounds like an AC30 that, yeah. Okay. Pete is looking very Jeff Beck. Well, that hair's growing out a little bit. It's true. And so Reb Beach do a Sur clinic on Tuesday. Where was that at? That's cool. I wonder if it was like at In Stuff or something in Pennsylvania by where he lives. Yeah. Can't decide which semi-hollow to buy. Gibson, Heritage, Eastman, Epiphone. Yeah, I mean, you got others to look at there too. You got Collings, you got Ibanez, Art Star looking ones. Yamahas. I know all kinds of different semi-hollows. But find one that floats your boat. For going ampless, just a pedal board, what do you think's the best unit for that? 2 notes, cab am, one of the US amp pedal boss. Ampless, just pedal board. I mean, I'm kind of been impressed, to be honest, with as far as pedalboard amps go. This Blackstar one, which I feel bad about. I neglected to mention it, even though you can see it sitting on top of my amp. But in the rig rundown I did recently, I've got an amped one out here on this tour, which is like a basically like a really cool little piece of gear. It gives you different front ends you can switch in that are US, UK, and then something else. Can't remember what the other one is. Different power amp styles that must be modeling of some sort. Because there's no tubes in this thing or anything like that. It's got a 100-watt, I think, Class D style power amp in it, but you can switch in power amp voicing to sound like 34s or 606s, that kind of thing. And it really sounds quite convincingly good. And I brought it out to use as a backup because let's say the SL68 goes down, well, I can simply just plug the output that's running to the front of that amp into this amped one, set it on the UK setting, go into my 412 and get a pretty good sound. It's like pretty legit. Like I showed it to my tech Roger, set it up on the UK thing, set it for about the gain level of the SL68, and he goes like, "Man, what's wrong with that?" I'm like, "I know, it sounds pretty good, doesn't it?" And It's a little more sterile than the real thing, and also on the clean, like the Fendery thing. It's basically UK US. I can set it to sort of be a sub for the Bella or a sub for the SL68 in case I have a problem. I haven't had any problems, knock on wood, but it's there in case I need it. So look at that thing. Anyway, they make a new one now that is like I think a channel switching version, and it's got delay and reverb and stuff built in. It's pretty cool. They're doing good stuff. Pretty neat. And there's other ones too. There's one coming out I know of that's not out yet, so I can't tell you about that. But these amp style pedals with like 2 channels, and then there's the ones I've done reviews for on my channel that you've seen too, like but they don't have power amps built in. But I'm forgetting the name now. Just tired, sorry, but it's a Simplifier. That one from company down in South America, I think. That thing's pretty neat. I mean, you could run that into a power amp or go direct with it. There's so many of these things out there now, Let's see. I've been binging Star Wars, says Lauren, in the middle of The Mandalorian. Is there a new season of Mandalorian or something? I enjoyed that show, actually. I want to start watching it again. It was pretty cool. But it's one more subscription. I gotta then subscribe to Disney or whatever. And it's like, geez, amount of subscriptions I have. And it's like $9.95 here and $9.95 there. Like, you guys know what I'm talking about. You feel my pain. We're going at an hour and 30. I'll go about another 10 minutes. And I'm going to split. And I'm having fun, but I am getting tired and I'm sick. So I should probably chill. But yeah. I heard Mick from that pedal show say he was surprised you were playing with actual amps with the Classic Rock show. Yeah. Well, yeah, both James, the other guitar player, and he's musical director and stuff like that, this thing. He's a guitar nut, an amp nut. And I'm glad that he feels the same way about it. Like I said, I don't really want to do a sanitized rock show that's all modelers and that kind of thing. No, I want feedback. You can see people respond in the crowd. I mean, they actually get jazzed on the guitar. Like dudes in the front, when we're playing an AC/DC song or something, you do a big pick scrape or whatever, and they're like, yeah. And it's like the tone is coming off the stage and they're getting it. And you can see people respond to it. And I'm sorry, it's like that is part of it. And even the feedback stuff I do is stuff when I'm holding long notes and letting it feedback, you can see people in the front going, yeah, that's cool. That's rock. That's what we remember. Yes, it's loud and it's not always perfect, and Andrea, the sound guy on this tour, he works with me on it. He's really cool, but I give him hell sometimes because he'll be like, yesterday we did sound check and he said, did you turn up from yesterday? Because the guitar just seems really loud coming off the stage. And I go, dude, the drummer hasn't even started playing yet. I go, just wait. It's all going to sound normal. As soon as drums and bass kick in, the singer starts screaming. And he's like, okay. And then sure enough, everything's fine. He's like, yeah, it's fine. But guitar sounds so loud when you first plug in and it just does, right? It sounds like if it's the first thing you hear all day, loud rock stage or somewhat loud rock stage, it seems like, oh, ooh. And then 10 minutes later, you're like, oh yeah, it's right. As soon as the drummer hits the snare drum 5 times, you're like, holy geez, that's loud. And that's just rock. So I don't know. I mean, and to his credit, he's been great. He's a really good sound guy. And I don't mind. We've got those screens, like I mentioned, we've got some plexi screens now, and with those arrayed just right on the stage, I don't mind it at all. And actually, in a way, I'm kind of preferring it to not having them. They're the clear sonic panels, like you see Bonamassa use. It's quite nice, actually, and I think it is saving my hearing a little bit. And yeah, so there you have it. This is interesting. That's a good advice, I would say. This sounds like seasoned advice. Thicker strings allows you to lower your P90s and still be amazing. Yeah, like a lot of Les Paul specials and things. I've seen, players tend to use the bigger strings with P90s, and there'll be more power for sure for the pickup, and you don't have to have it up so high. That's pretty interesting. Scott Brockway is saying a Randy deep dive, Randy Rhoads. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a real Randy aficionado is the only thing. I appreciate him, but the sound on the record wasn't my favorite, and I'll just be straight up honest about it. Actually, when I did the Flying High Again thing and I played that guitar, and I kind of went at the sound a different way, and I used a SD1 into my SL68, and I didn't do the exact Randy thing, but I played that guitar with the hotter ceramic pickups in it and all that, and then I did it. And to be honest, I like the sound that I got more than the sound that I hear on the records. Like I tried to dial it in to be close, but I actually feel like I enjoyed the sound more because I wasn't like a huge fan of the Altec speakers and the whatever was going on. I've never now when he played on live, the few bits of live footage there is of Randy Rhoads playing live, like on the after hours program, where they do I Don't Know and I think Crazy Train and a couple other songs. It sounds great on there. It's cool, but whatever went on in the studio, it's not my favorite guitar sound. So I'm it would be disingenuous, I think, for me to do some sort of deep dive and try and create that exactly when I'm not actually like a huge aficionado of it. I'm an amazing player, and the songs are great, but the tone wasn't totally my deal. I much prefer the Eddie sound, pretty much across the board. So, yeah. Uh, okay. Um, what else we got here? Let's see. I'm just looking through some of your comments and stuff like that. See what you guys are talking about. I think I'm gonna. Oh, there's a super chat there from uh, Vinicius. What's up, man? How are you? Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. You guys with your super chats, you're too kind. And there's another one down here somewhere. There it is. Thank you guys for all these today. I really appreciate it. The 50 pounds of empty beer bottles were beer bottles I found in the woods when I was cleaning up my neighborhood today. Oh, that's nice. You did a little neighborhood cleanup. That's cool. I don't drink beer myself because of my heart. Love you, Pete. Hey, thanks, man, Tom. I appreciate that. That you went out and did that. And yeah, take them all back and get some dough for those. You worked hard. You deserve it. Thank you, man. Thanks so much. Oh, here's a super chat from Sessions with Jeff. Hey, man, favorite vocal reverb plugin? Well, I don't mix a lot of vocals. That's a thing because I'm an instrumental guitar guy a lot. But some that I've really enjoyed over the years are the EMT, is that what it's called? The plate, that's the classic one with the big sliders. The UA makes a beautiful sounding version of that. That sounds really great. They also make a lexicon plugin that's really nice. I also like the AKG spring plugin from UA. It's super good sounding, and Capital Chambers is beautiful sounding from UA as well. Those are some great sounding reverbs. Ocean Way Studios as well for UA. These are more room sounds than like your plate reverbs or your hall reverbs, or for those. Yeah, I would recommend that. The AKG Spring is just really special. It's got this warmth to it that's so cool, like on a vocal. It sounds really good. We used it a lot on Holly's first record when I was mixing those vocals. Sounded really good to me. Thank you for super chats. I appreciate it. And Vinicius, do you use buffers on your pedal board? Where? First in the chain, first and last in the chain? Okay, so live I'm using a wireless. So you're buffered coming right out of the guitar because the wireless is buffered. So that's a buffer. And then I do have, if I'm using a cable, say my wireless doesn't work or I just want to use a cable in my pedal board, the first thing my guitar hits is a buffer in the Friedman buffer bay, which is I think a Cornish style buffer. Yeah, in the Friedman buffer bay. And then I think I've got a buffer on at the end in my Mark 6 switcher as well. I think I've got that turned on. There's different buffers. There's 3 buffers or something in the Mark 6 from Musicom Lab. And yeah, long story short, I tend to have one at the beginning and one at the end of the board, and that's it pretty much. Then I figure, okay, plenty of buffers. What's this super duper chat. Guitars for your project. Thanks, man. Are you attending NAMM 2023? Yeah, I'll be there. I'm hearing not a lot of companies exhibiting Fender Gibson. Is it still worth going? Well, I went last year and I had a really good time, to be honest. I saw a lot of people. There was a lot of still sort of more pro audio companies there, like my friends at I don't know if UA was actually there or not, but Apogee was there. Um, I think PRS is going this year. They weren't there last year. Ibanez was there last year. They'll probably be there again. The economy's in a little bit different place now, a little more unstable than it was back then. But we'll see. When NAMM goes back to January next year, we'll see if it. I think that'll be the true measure of whether it still makes sense for companies to go. But I'm gonna go. Long story short, I want to go at least for a day or two. I haven't made plans yet, but I'm gonna do it. Um, yeah. What does a buffer do? And long story short, it makes a signal low impedance. Um, so a high impedance signal converts it to low impedance, which allows for longer cable runs without any high end loss, and just kind of a pure signal path going all the way through. Yeah. When you have a high impedance signal and long cable runs, 20 feet of cable, 30 feet of cable, 40 feet of cable cumulatively. With every foot of cable, you get some high end loss, some capacitance build up with a high impedance signal. And by using a buffer and converting the signal to low impedance, you sort of minimize that, and it kind of goes away really. And you can run really long cable lengths without noticeable loss. Now, some people like the sound of the capacitance is the thing. They'll like a certain amount of it. So is it better to use a buffer right out of the guitar? Is it better to use a buffer after a certain amount of cable? So you can get a little bit of that sound, that cable tone, which can be really cool to a lot of people. And then use a buffer after that. That's Sir's advice. And I think it's always good advice when it comes to buffers is find the amount of cable you like going, say, straight into your amplifier. Try a 10 foot, a 15 foot, a 20, a 25, and you will hear very clearly anything more than 20 feet. You're going to start to hear some high end changing and rolling off. Some people can hear it after 10. I kind of hear the difference between 10 and 20. 18, some people say, is a magic number. But anyways, you find the amount of cable where you like the sound. And then after that, you put the buffer right there. And then you don't change the sound after that, no matter how much more cable you add, in theory. No matter how much more cable you're adding, you can keep the signal nice and pure and strong all the way out to the amp from that point. That's a good way to look at it. So, if you run an 18 or 20 foot cable in front of your pedal board, and then maybe you've got a fuzz or a wah or something that doesn't respond well to a univibe, certain pedals, they don't like buffers. So go into your pedal board, run those kind of up front, and then hit a buffer, and then buffer the signal after that all the way out. Do you use pedals on your pedal board? Yeah, I've got I did a rig rundown recently if you want to check it out so you can see exactly what's on my board. Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of super chats there that I got to grab. Thank you guys so much for these. So really appreciate it. Have you tried an original run Ibanez Talman? I remember when they came out. I think I tried them. I mean, they were kind of a cool. It's an interesting time in guitar when they came out. Was the '90s, and the shredded thing was kind of not cool. But they came out with the Ibanez Talman, and it was a little more like Telly style, right? Like, and a little more funky. Like you saw the Charvels use lipstick tube pickups then, and like it was a different time. It was like, oh, we're getting into some kind of more funky indie looking guitars from these brands like Charvel and Ibanez, and it was cool. And I think Yvette Young's guitar is based off of Talman, isn't it? Essentially, I think. So, yeah. Jason says an idea would be really cool for you to play through all your amps when you're back in your studio, like on one of these live streams. I've been doing that a little more recently. Like, where I'm showing the Jose or showing the Soldano or different amps that I've shown, because I've now got a way to do like pretty much full quality streaming audio coming out of my rig as I'm doing these live streams. So a little bit more, but yeah, I could do a thing where I run through every amp in the room almost, wouldn't be too hard to do. Mr. Cruz here says, how you or Tim Pierce run a long cable from cabinet's mic to control room. You just run a super long speaker cable and long mic cables. So you need like 80 or 100 feet of cable, essentially. Which is, those are low impedance runs. I mean, speaker cable, I mean, I don't know, technically is that low impedance? I don't really understand. But what you use is really, really thick gauge, good like 13 gauge or whatever speaker cable. And you can run a long run without worrying about it. They say that the higher the impedance goes, so like 16 ohms or even 32 ohms, if if an amp did that, then you would hear it more. Then the like 4 ohms or 8 ohms is better. I don't know why that technically is. Maybe somebody out there can explain why that is. But I did tests when I first moved into a studio in Santa Monica many years ago, where I moved in and I listened to amps because my studio was down the hall with another room in the middle, all the way to where my amps were isolated. So I had to run a really, really long cable through the ceiling over to the amp room, 80 feet or something like that, maybe more, maybe 100. And I recorded with the head, and then I went and listened after, I put the amp in the room then. I went in there with my guitar and just plugged in the cable, and I played through the amp and recorded at the same time. And because I wanted to hear, so in other words, where the head was right by the cabinet and I could run a short speaker cable. And then I went with the amp all the way back to my control room and plugged in with the super long cable and played with the same guitar cable and everything else being equal. And I couldn't hear any difference. Everything sounded fine. So I was like, all right, this isn't a thing. Like, I don't need to worry about. And obviously in studios, they do that, right? The really, really long speaker cable runs in pro studios is pretty common. Heads in the control room and then cabinets isolated way far away out in a booth somewhere. So this isn't a thing that really affects the sound. And microphone cables are low impedance balanced. You can run 100 feet of mic cable or whatever, all the way from a cabinet room all the way back to the desk, and it's cool, or your mic pre's or whatever. As long as all your wiring's tight and good and all that, and quality cables, it's all good. Have you ever tried the Blue Guitar amp? Only a little bit. I'm supposed to do a video eventually of that, but haven't yet. So we will see. Tone suck with longer speaker runs back to cabs. No. So no. Thank you for the super chats on that. But yeah, you are all good. As long once again, use good speaker cable. That's heavy gauge. Don't use 18 gauge or 16 gauge. Even use like a 14 or 13 gauge. I'm using the Sonox stuff, I think, or my speaker cable. Yeah, it's called Sonox. I think it's like a German brand. I think that's what it's called. And I got 13 gauge, I think, from my studio, and then also long mic cables. I have 2 long mic cables that go all the way out. Yeah. Jonathan there with the super chat says, "Get well soon, man. Enjoy break in the US." Thank you so much. Yeah, you guys, I think I'm going to split. This was a good long one. We were an hour and 48 minutes today, and I think I should get some rest and stuff like that. Maybe I will go to whiskey or something like that, and have one, and then get in bed. Just like, hopefully I feel better tomorrow. But yeah, that's my plan right now. I think I got all the super chats. I'm just looking back through the last few. Pretty sure I did, so I think we're good. I'll see you guys next week. I should look and see just where I'm going to be before I go. Oh, I'll be in LA next week, of course, so I can do this from my studio. That's fun. It'll be the 19th. Awesome. So I'll be home and I can do this from that's really cool. I'm happy to be home next. I'm excited about going home this week. It's like my head. It's funny when you go on tour, how if the tour is 2 weeks or if the tour is 3 weeks or 2 months or 4 months, you get geared into that mentally, and then when you're gonna go home, you're like a week before going home, you're kinda, like, getting excited to go home, you know? And it doesn't, like I say, it doesn't matter if it's 2 weeks or if it's 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever, and you kinda your brain deals with it in a way, or your mind, or, where you're like you're cool all the way through, and then you're just like at the end, you're like, okay, now I'm getting excited to go home. Your head starts to go there, and that's where I'm at right now. Normally, when I come do this tour, I'm over here for 2 months straight. This time, it's going to be about 5 weeks, and I get to go home for a break, come back and do 3.5 more weeks, and then go home. And that'll be the end. And so it's a nice break. It's a nice little split in the middle where I can go home um and have a little time at home and stuff like that, and do a few things back there, and live my normal life a little bit. So um, looking forward to that. All right, y'all. Hey, love y'all. Have a great Super Bowl Sunday if you're gonna watch the Super Bowl. And I'll see you guys next week from LA, I guess. Most excellent. Hey, there's Roger. What's up? This is the nice gentleman that helps me every day out here on the road. Can we get screens for the back as well where I stand? Roger was saying that the combo is loud blown backwards, the Roger, I wonder if it's even worse now because of the screen being in the front and it's reflecting back to you. It probably is. So let's think about that. If Andy didn't stand on my rack panels, you could simply put those behind the combo. Steal them from him tomorrow. He's just sort of appropriated them to stand on in front of his monitor desk. So anyways, and I'll see you tomorrow, my friend. Hopefully I'll feel a little better than I do right now. All right. You guys, poor Roger says Ian. I know, poor Roger. Roger's a good man. Okay, everybody, have a great week, and I'll see you next week from LA. Everybody take care. Thanks so much for being here, and for all your super chats and all your great questions. There were some really good questions this week. It was a good vibe. I appreciate you all. Take care.